And I take this immense pleasure to welcome our chief guest, Mr. O P Malhotra, onto the stage to give away the opening ceremony speech. So let's give a huge round of applause and welcome him onto the stage, please.
Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to address this gathering today on the 25th anniversary of this forum and the 13th Carbon Black Conference. I will tell you about most of my own experience with Philips Carbon Black. The Philips Carbon Black was set up in 1960 with the financial and technical collaboration of Philips Petroleum Company USA and Duncan Brothers of Calcutta, each having 30% equity. And the plant started manufacturing in 1962. This plant was based not on any petroleum feedstock. It was based on processed coal tar. And unfortunately, Philips Petroleum had no experience whatsoever of making carbon black from processed tar. We had a big distillation unit which we used to distill processed tar to get our lighter fractions, and 50% of the product was high softening pitch, which I discarded in the pits. It's a very wasteful experiment, and running distillation unit was a nightmare because in those days we were in a place where the power outages very often. Very often there was power outage and there was no diesel generator backup at that time. Those were the most difficult times, and we were not allowed to import any carbon black feedstock because the country didn't have any foreign exchange. Well, we started in 1960 production, and we are the pioneers and largest producers of carbon black as well as specialty blacks in India. We have 4 plants in India. We are in the process of putting a 5th plant. And it is difficult to develop, imagine the changes that have taken place in technology. In 1962, when we started the plant, can you imagine, there was no purge gas filter, there were no auto packers. We were, and I must say this, Philips Petroleum cut a lot of corners. In a third world country, nobody will bother pollution. And the labor was so cheap, very, very few cents in a day you could get hire people. So they had open bags. And we had to pull carbon black in the open bags and stitch it with a stitching machine. It was a very, very messy operation. And the purge gas filter, no purge gas filter, the winds will take the black 30 kilometers away from to places called Asansol, Burdwan, and that was the state of affairs. But then things changed. And air preheater temperature was only 300 degrees. We had a battery of small reactors, about 12 of them for 2 steam plants of 30,000 tons per year, 1 soft and 1 hard steam. And producing about 10 to 15 tons per day, which is today 150 tons one reactor. And the air preheater was only 300 degrees, and we had big filters, big diameter filters, reverse flow filters, and the gases were vented to the atmosphere. Off gas was vented to the atmosphere, and the liquid effluent treated was just sent After some treatment, back to the rivulet, back to the river called the Moda. And I tell you, once I was returning from Delhi to Calcutta and the plane was flying over my plant, I was ashamed to see how much dirty water we were putting into the river. But those were the days. But today, there is no effluent discharge. We do not send a liter of water outside. All the gas is combusted in boilers